Hey everyone, welcome to the GDC Twitch channel. My name is Brian Francis. I am a contributing editor at GammaSutra.com. I am also the community manager for GDC. We are here today, back on the GDC Twitch channel, playing a game you may have heard about called Bugsnax. What are Bugsnax? What adorable, what happens when you eat them? This is something that you will find out when you watch the footage that is playing for us right here, which unfortunately is pre-recorded. Sadly, we are not playing live today, but hey, if you like Bugsnax, you're gonna see some Bugsnax. If you would prefer not to get any spoilers, I would suggest tuning away, because this is going to be spoilers for the first hour of the game. But we're not just here to play Bugsnax, we are here to talk with some of the folks who made Bugsnax. That would be our good friends, Kevin Geisler and John Murphy, who will be appearing in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. Kevin and John, please introduce yourselves.
Sure. Well, I'm Kevin. I'm a programmer at Young Horses, one of two of us. I primarily worked on the PlayStation side of things, in addition to just my half of, the rest of the gameplay logic.
I'm John, and I was a gameplay designer for Bugsnax, mostly designing the game mechanics, the sort of behaviors of Bugsnax, and the tools and traps used to capture them in the game.
Right on. We're going to be talking a lot about tools and traps in just a minute while the intro to Bugsnax plays out before us. If you're in the audience and you'd like to ask design or development questions for the folks from Young Horses, feel free to do so. I've got chat open in the window, and I will be asking them. Kevin and John, if you wouldn't mind starting off, Bugsnax is it's a weird game with an incredibly functional purpose and game logic that has just captured people's attention. Where did this come from? It's kind of that's a multi-layer question, because where did the idea for Bugsnax, bugs which are snacks, come from? Where did the idea of a systems-driven game where you interact with them come from? Where did the idea of everyone is Grumpus otters things come from? There's so many layers to the question, where did this come from? And I only hope you can answer some of them in that, in the way I phrased it.
I got it.
Kevin, why don't you have a better answer for the where did the original concept come from? So why don't you start with that?
Well, I was going to hand it over to you.
Oh no.
But I'll do my best. Well, because I would say, so after Octodad, we as a team decided, hey, let's try to do something new. We've only done Octodad. That's been our lives. Let's try to come up with some different ideas and prototype them and see where that gets us. So we had a number of prototypes after sort of pitching a few dozen or more ideas that we ended up trying and making. One of them, pitched by creative director Kevin Zune, was sort of based on the idea of bugs as different real-life food, such as
if I'm stuck cleaning up your sloppy work,
what we ended up with the game, like a crab apple. And the idea was we would go on a safari, sort of in a on-rails Pokemon Snap style adventure, where you are using different physics-based tools to sort of lure and capture them from your vehicle. And we, over time, moved away from that when we decided, I'm not sure that on rails is fun. I'm not sure that Pokemon Snap is actually fun anymore. So from there, we kind of ended up layering a lot of other gameplay mechanics, just even from our other pitches that we didn't go forward with. And that's where we sort of brought in, what if these characters are on this island? What if they're reacting to eating, different Bugsnax? What are their backstories? How does that change them? And it really snowballed completely away from the original pitch, but into something that I think we all wanted to actively work on.
Yeah, and I guess there are sort of like 3 games that we actually prototyped that like none of them really worked by themselves. There was a game that was like a sort of like spooky narrative summer camp sort of idea that we abandoned, and then slowly over time, like the sort of like the like being a small community and like, you know, bringing people into that community and you know, exploring outward from that sort of main camp like crept back into the game. There was a pitch for a game about where the name Grumpus came from was a pitch for a game called Gut City Grumpus that was like about like changing the guts of these sort of like cute monsters that looked very similar to what Grumpuses ended up like, and you know, like maybe like changing their behavior by feeding them things. So like some aspects of that ended up in there, and then yeah, and then when we were making the Pokemon Snap like on rails sort of thing, the mechanics, we like basically were like, oh, let's try to make something that's like on rails like this, because this was when we started making this, it was like when like VR was like really peaking as a thing, so that was like kind of in our minds that we could try to take advantage of that. But then like that didn't end up working, and our like ways of trying to make it not just a snapping pictures, like straight up Pokemon Snap sort of thing, those mechanics that we started to develop like didn't work with being on rails, because it just like felt like you're being rushed all the time. Like you can't like set up a trap like this, because then it's like, oh wait, there's the thing that I'm trying to do is like I'm constantly moving past it on this roller coaster, and that's stressful and bad. So eventually we were just like, let's take some of these like observing and capturing mechanics and like make a little bit more of like a chill, slower, more observational experience.
Chill, slow, and observational. I actually really, I mean, we're in the tutorial right now, so you're sort of getting the guided version of what these mechanics all look like. But yeah, I like that description. Chill, slow, and observational. Like that feels like the best part of this experience is when you're in that mode, like making connections in your own head before you execute them in real life.
Bugsnax.
Before my questioning continues, I will give shoutouts to folks in chat like Saggy Coffee, who just says, hey, back at you, Saggy Coffee. Professor Zagal, I don't know who you are, but they want to say, hi, John. And they don't know if John can see that. That's why, like I said, I'm here to relay.
I can't see that, and I don't know who that is, but hi.
Professor Zagal, we only hope that you're not taking time away from...
Oh, wait.
Yes,
I do know who that is. I didn't recognize the pronunciation.
Ah, got it.
Hi, Jose.
I was about to say.
Like, now I know.
Gotcha.
It took me a second.
Anyway, yeah, so if you've got questions, feel free. I'll also pull up your people's stream and comments. You know, it's a stream. It's interactive. We're here, like, I'm just an in-between guy for y'all in chat. Anyway, more about Bugsnax. John, you said you introduced yourself with kind of a, like, yeah, like, this game has a lot of, like, kind of if-then logic that it invites you to pick up on. Like, the simple logic right here of this animal is scared. If it's nearby, you can't capture it. Like, that's one of the most basic principles, and then, as you'll see, this escalates really quickly with sort of once we get past the 30-minute mark. What makes good if-then logic in a game like this, I guess? Like, what guided you through the process of making all these complex interactions?
That's funny to me, because like, so like on Octodad, it was very much like very linear if-then logic. That like the sort of stuff that I was doing, and so like I did not know what I was getting myself into, starting to create these sort of like much more modular I guess pieces of the game, both the traps and the Bugsnax and everything, where they interact with each other in ways that like I can't always predict, and like the if-then logic of like the basically building rudimentary AI was not really a thing that I'd ever done before. And it took a lot of like back and forth and help and Kevin, both Kevin and Devin, our other programmer, making a lot of like customized tech stuff and features for our editor to allow me to do this sort of more like class-based stuff instead of having everything just be like flat triggers in a level that are very simple and straightforward.
Gotcha. Kevin, is there anything you'd like to throw in about making this kind of in-game logic work, like that you think other developers might benefit from knowing?
I don't know, because we really had a lot of iteration on different layers of gameplay. Like, some of the stuff didn't make the cut, but I would say once we hammered in some of the like little things, it was nice to be able to just broadly apply them to, you know, all the bugs as sort of behavior. You know, like being able to run to a bush and hide, not necessarily restricting that to one single bug, but being able to, you know, allow a group of bugs to have that sort of behavior as part of their list of actions.
I guess like kind of my follow-up question about like bug behavior would be, there's, you know, the game is sort of working right now, as we can see in the footage, to establish a logic for the player to understand about that behavior. So, you know, this is obviously like the tutorialization of it, but at the same, you know, down the line there's some very complex interactions that the player has to comprehend in order for them to be able to proceed.
Around here.
Was there anything in this process where you sort of thought about, okay, this is cool and fun, but can we make sure players actually understand it? I'm curious if you had any particular challenges about that, about making sure that like your good ideas were
We're all on our last chances around here, buddy. I know who.
Well, I think in a lot of those cases, we ended up trying to make sure, are there multiple ways to solve this, even if they seem, you know, unintuitive? Because people may not get maybe the most straightforward way we were trying to guide them with some of these behaviors, but they'll usually creatively think of at least one alternate. And there's especially cases where, you know, maybe most of us on the team wouldn't think of that solution at all, and are pleasantly surprised when that shows up. I know one for me that I guess was intentional. There's just some bugs I didn't realize you could just hit with the slingshot out of the air and they'll just go, you know, flying. And I don't think the game explicitly tells you to try to do that. But me discovering that on my own in this game that I worked on was actually, you know, very nice.
John, is there anything you learned about like trying to help players understand Bugsnax logic?
How's the farm?
Let's see. Alive? Well, one thing in terms of understanding sort of like the
found a journalist.
Giving an impression of like what the Bugsnax were like thinking was the addition of the little emoji bubbles. I think that helps one with just like a little bit of like very minor character building and helps reinforce like, oh, this thing, like, don't do this, this is making it afraid, or like this Bugsnax is attracted to this other Bugsnax in this situation. Another thing was basically we have like not a huge set of behaviors. There's like Bugsnax can shoot things, Bugsnax can be on fire or be frosty, so it's hard to catch them. They can be sort of quick moving and evasive, or they can be flying, those sorts of things. There may be like 12 things like that. And then kind of like hopefully be sort of like recombining those simple behavioral building blocks would make it so that when a player comes across a new Bugsnax, they have enough experience with other Bugsnax that they can sort of piece together or quickly figure out by playing around with it and using the snack scope to get some clues about it. You know, it's not entirely new every time.
Yeah, I guess the follow up, like the what happens after players learn about Bugsnax. You know, when they're also, you know, like you're caught. Like we have a task right here. You know, use ketchup to lure Burger Beetle. I forget the real name of it. Sorry, Bunger.
Bunger.
They're on screen. You know, then you have to create sort of puzzles for the player, I guess, on top of that. So I guess like then I obviously, you know, making games is a iterative, multi-layered process. Like first, you know, you have to make logic, and then you're iterating on puzzles. But I guess like from there, it was like, okay, now you have like a chain of logic. And I guess along with, I mean, we can talk about the narrative context later because the narrative context is delightful. But you know, then when you get down to it, we're gonna see some puzzles later where it's like find these bugs and deliver them to this person. Becomes a structure for how things proceed, and on some level that has to work and be understandable as well, even with the logic you described. So I guess what were your thoughts about making objectives for players in that space?
I didn't mean for Philbo to get hurt like that.
So most of the quest design our creative director Kevin Zune did a lot of that, but we talked a lot about sort of like trying to make it so that, you know, it's essentially a series of fetch quests. Like a lot is like the core loop of the bug catching and questing, but we tried to mix in some other non-bug catching things or other mechanics that are related to interacting with the Bugsnax. You know, for example, you know, like a mini game where you have to use the buggy ball, your little hamster ball thing, to lead a Bugsnax through a maze. Just like little things like that, combined with, I mean, the storytelling and characters do most of the work, I think, of breaking up all of that. But we also wanted to have some mechanical variety in there, while still having this sort of core loop.
Kevin, do you want to add anything?
I guess I'd just say or reiterate, like, well, this level that we're watching especially really just sets up sort of the sequence of how a lot of the rest of the game is, where it will give you a tool, present it at its most basic to get you to understand that tool, but then give you an objective where you really have to combine it in sequence with another tool in order to accomplish a specific goal. And I know this level in particular went through a lot of iteration, making sure, you know, it was at the right difficulty and the right pacing, which was kind of hard because we had a decently wide audience of people testing this level over and over, where you get some people who were just able to breeze through this and are like, this is too easy, this is a very boring tutorial. But then you'd have other people who are like really struggling, you know, either to get the puzzles or to grasp the sort of twitchiness that the gameplay can sometimes require, and trying to figure out how to balance that. A lot of the work really went into this, you know, sequence of the game in particular. But I think that's probably going to be true of a lot of games, especially games that are trying to do, you know, something different with their mechanics. They're going to spend a very large percentage of game development making sure like this level or this sequence works.
Gotcha. This is the GDC Twitch channel. Normally we are here talking about, you know, how games get made, like trying to crack them open and discuss the internal logic. Why do I bounce up right now when this bunker hits me, for instance? But we're gonna bring in a fun question from chat from Kinmoku87. Kinmoku87 says they love Bugsnax. Did you enjoy coming up with new snacks concepts? And most importantly, who is your favorite snack and who is your favorite Grumpus?
I guess I'll answer first.
Yeah, go for it.
I feel like Bilbo is my favorite character, but maybe that's because he's very inoffensive. I just kind of like that, you know, no matter what, he's trying to push along both the player and the other characters in the game to sort of come back together and recover from the sort of split that has occurred. My favorite Bugsnax is probably the Ribblepede, which you really have to watch it in action to see why it's such a good bug. Even aside from that, the transforms that it gives are a bit jarring, but incredibly well done.
John, what is your... I need to know what your favorite Bugsnax is before we can continue. Also your favorite Grumble, but you know.
Yeah. So I would say I'm gonna go. So the Ribblepede is kind of centipede rib. My favorite is the I'm gonna say it's the Sprinklepede, which is a donut millipede. Mostly because of the animation and sound design on that one, because when you scare it out of hiding, it runs around the whole level and it rolls around like a wheel, and makes like a car screeching, like peel out sound if you get too close to it. And it's just a great looking design. And my favorite Grumpus is Chandlo. It's kind of like a kind, chill bro, which is what I aspire to someday be.
Oh man, I think we should all aspire for kind, chill brodom. Okay, let's dive into. There's a PlayStation-y part of all this that I think is worth bringing up. I played this game on PlayStation 5. It's also available on PlayStation 4. It's a game that you can buy. You don't have to buy it if you have a PlayStation, I forget, a PlayStation subscription. It's not PS Plus. God, I forget the name of the service. And I use the service, so this is very bad hosting of me. But this is a game that is launching with the PS5. It has some interesting features that take advantage of the controller, the new haptics. It also, because it's launching on PS5, it means you guys were developing for new hardware before a lot of other developers were. What was kind of that experience? Octodad was also kind of an early PS4 game too, so it seems like Young Horses has gotten 2 opportunities to sort of be part of the indie launch for Sony's new consoles. Is there anything you guys have learned about this experience that was particular? I don't know, what do you think other developers should know about making games for this console?
Well, pleasantly, working on PS5 was kind of identical to working on PS4. We had put together our own tech in order to do Octodad, and basically after that we kind of went with the decision, well, we already ported it to 11 platforms or whatever. Let's try to get another game out while this generation happens. So me personally, I was anticipating we would release this game before the next generation, which we, I guess, kind of made it. Being a launch title for PS5 was pretty beneficial, just because it gave us sort of like a talking point for when we announced our game. Plus, we still had the PlayStation 4 version
pretty good hunter.
that we had been working on this whole time.
It's been rough since vanished.
As far as sort of the development differences,
Hey, I sure could use help with this tree.
I do think coming into this, the controller was absolutely my favorite part to play with in terms of development. We ended up using Fmod for audio, and Seth, who did our sounds, and it ended up getting assigned doing all the sort of haptic feedback and vibrations for the game through that system. And I'm not sure, we really don't have any external game development experience, so I can't say what games did before this, but a cool thing we were able to do was with the audio, sort of just use that to feed into other systems. For instance, the animations of the characters are all flapping jaw animations. It's just all driven by amplitude coming out of Fmod. And now the controller vibrations are also just audio sent out from Fmod. Seth can just hook up a sound and route it straight to the controller as a vibration. And on top of that, the work that went into the PlayStation 5 version, we were able to put into the PS4 version, where it may not have the cool rumble features, but we can just track all that audio that was meant to be routed to the PlayStation controller and reroute it to just the controller rumble amplitude on other platforms.
Bring it here. I'll show you how it's done.
So that was my favorite part. The controller also had some cool stuff we did with the triggers as well, just sort of trying to make those feel different. In terms of like, when you've got the scope open, one of the triggers feels more like clicking a shutter button.
Way to play fetch.
And then
okay, now open it up.
Because I was sort of enamored with the controller, we also threw in controller sounds. So like capturing the bug, the controller then speaks the bug's name right after you capture it. And
I wish we could have captured that for the stream, but you can't unless I have my phone recording it. You can't. Like I'm just sitting here capturing bugs, and it's just like bunger, like just pops out of my hand. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. No, that one really gets people.
Yeah. I liked that you brought up the controller because it's I'm playing a couple other PS5 games, and I agree. This thing is like it's just such a cool device. Like it's. There's weird little ways that, like, even though, like, you kind of don't think of these things as essential for a game, they certainly, like, make things feel really cool. The fact that these special vibrations and the pressure that you, the different haptic pressure you can get on the triggers. We've sort of heard, I'm sort of like, like, developers, you guys launched this game first on PS5. You mentioned Octodad got ported, so you've worked with other consoles. We have been wondering from like here talking to some other developers about like should developers like put extra time and effort? How much extra time and effort does it take to make things for this controller? What are your kind of thoughts about like what the payoff is for developers who are making games for multiple platforms to be paying attention to the controller and putting work into making it feel special?
Nobody would want to come back here.
The controller specifically, I think, is absolutely worth the effort. But I guess in terms of like platform-specific features, it was one of the things that took the least amount of time. Because there were certainly other things that we had to learn to use or to rethink. But I don't know. I think the controller is certainly a thing that adds an extra layer to playing the game that really didn't take that much time to do compared to a lot of other things we put in.
Me?
Oh, that's interesting. Excel Kobayashi would like to know, and you may not have an answer to this, but it's worth asking. Does the PS5 style rumble work with the PS5 controller on PC? Excel Kobayashi, I can answer part of that before they do, which is Steam just announced that the controller is supported, but the special haptic features aren't being supported right now, but they're coming down the line. But I don't know, have you guys worked with it on PC at all? Do you know if it's going to be like as functional there? I don't know anything beyond what I just said.
No, I read the same thing as you, and I don't know how that gets implemented across different games, but I will say I wish Windows had better controller support. They basically, support an Xbox controller, or use direct input, and you have a lot of different under the hood hacks if you want other features to work. And I know Steam has been doing a very good job of gaining access to a lot of these controller features and just automatically supporting it on their platform. I wish it wasn't just a Steam-driven thing, but it'll be interesting to see if they actually do get the PS5 style rumble working on PC, because that would be pretty nice.
Yeah. John, before we move off the controller, is there anything you'd like to weigh in with about working on the PS5? I don't know, either working on the PS5 or working on the specific controller, the new DualShock that you particularly enjoyed in this process. I know, like you said, it was your sound guy doing a lot of it, but if there are any thoughts you have, I'd love to hear.
Sorry, buddy. I didn't
I didn't really have much direct input, but like a post-release thing that players have noticed that that I think is worth mentioning is that the game help has been really nice for people. Just like having these little video hints of how to like catch a particular Bugsnax.
Oh yeah, the little tutorial feature that they've added.
So that
I'll be here if you need any advice.
we had a lot of help from Sony on actually generating all of that, but that is a thing that I think, I imagine in general that's a thing that developers are gonna have to do if they want to support that, and I think that players are going to like it a lot, or like at least for games like ours, like it's like, oh, okay, next time I want to keep in the back of my head that like if like maybe we're gonna have to do this and it's gonna be a lot of work, but it might be worth it. Will probably be worth it, or at least it'll be a new expectation from players that it's there. People liked it a lot for like Bugsnax. I've seen people say that it is like a particularally good use of that feature.
Yeah, I guess does that we're all talking kind of abstract here because it seems like, I mean, it's so hard to predict how these things will play out before they do. I know, like, it's not accurate for me to say this influenced how puzzles got made in this game, because no one makes puzzles with the expectations of how the guides will be. But does it like kind of help you as a designer to go, okay, I can push the boundaries on a puzzle if I'm confident that some players will want to participate in that challenge, and others will have the ability to quickly and efficiently like get a leg up, and sort of without hurting the other player, like having that little bit of, like, there is a crutch out there that players can rely on that's in the console itself, it's not on YouTube, it's not on GameFAQs. I spent a lot of time on GameFAQs back when I was 12 years old, so shout out to those guys. But yeah, like, does that affect your thoughts as like how you structure puzzles, I guess? Like, I apologize for the abstractness of the question, but I'm just curious if that's where your perspective has shifted.
I think it would depend on the game. Like, for this game, I never really wanted like really tough puzzles. I wanted like a little bit of like the like expressive. You've got different ways to do this, and like sometimes it's tricky. So for me, it's more like this fills in the gaps in my bad design sometimes. Like it feels like a safety net for me. So like that's kind of similar to what you're talking about, but like. Yeah, if I was trying to make a hard puzzle game, yes, but like in general, that's not what I'm trying to do anyway.
I think the use case that I saw when we had started first implementing it was this would be amazing for parents with children that maybe can't get past a certain part and are stuck and are asking, why won't this game do this? And the parent then may come in and see, well, I have no idea where you are, I haven't been playing this game at all, but they can jump into game help and either, help them play through it or play through it for their child. And even aside from that type of relation, I think players who haven't been playing the game in a while may want to return to any sort of game and see, hey, I've got these activities active, this is where I left off, but I have no idea what I was supposed to be doing. And while we try to give those instructions in the game, sometimes having that extra video feedback or it would just be instruction can just sort of help them get the ball rolling again. And I do think that's kind of what Sony was trying to go for with the activity cards in general, was to keep players being able to move through a game and not just sort of
So no to
languish
all.
on a specific
But the
spot that
date's
they
still a
may have
magnet?
happened to get caught up on.
Very well.
The activity cards, though,
Go
I don't know
and
if they're
seek my
getting talked
inspiration.
about as much as I think they ought to, but one thing I wish we had done that I want to say
my
that
dear.
Spider-Man has done is have specific activity cards that you can't access the content in the game otherwise. You have to go through the activity card to do, the singular activity, and it's, completely unrelated to the rest of the main game story. But for me, either continuing with Bugsnax or our next game, I'd love to do just weird non-canon activities that you jump in, where we don't have to worry about, like, does this flow with the game? It's just sort of this, limited thing to do, and that's where I see a lot of cool moments coming from the activities cards in the future.
A, you have made me now I have to go back in, because I'm playing Miles Morales right now, and I need to go check out those activity cards because I did not know that. And B,
I thought I read an article, there's something about pigeons, but I never played
I did do a pigeon
the
question.
first game.
Oh, the first game had pigeons were a big
We were in the
thing,
middle
but,
of training.
we can talk about Spider-Man and pigeons another time. B, that's so, like, it's weird because it's like it's only PlayStation that's doing it, right? So like you're making, I don't know, like we already have like content that's platform exclusive. That is a thing that all developers shell out money for. But if it's gonna be that way, like I do appreciate. I'm excited by the idea of developers being able to make something special for people who are paying attention, and only a few people see it. But it's the ones who like check the activity cards and go, "Hey, wait a minute!" Like that excites me because I like it. I feel like it makes relationships between players and developers like a little more concrete. Like you can sort of subsection out a group of people who will go that far, as opposed to the people who are like, oh, this is like it helps you sort of categorize your fans, I guess. For my next Bugsnacky question,
Sprout's always been a good judge of character. Sprout loves adventure.
there's also we skipped over it. There's a interview system in this game where after you successfully get characters back to town, like you said, you mentioned earlier, it's from your other summer camp prototype. This whole notion of getting a community back together, like helping people solve their problems. There is kind of this neat, players acquiring facts and piecing together those facts to do information, which it's delightful that this is a game where you're a journalist, because as an alleged journalist, it's nice to play a game where I'm the hero for once, instead of the side character who gets punched, like in Mass Effect 2. I gotta say, what were sort of your thoughts about making a game where instead of just having a story that and there is this kind of a straightforward story to it, and there are dialogue trees which are more conventional, but this kind of interviewing people, it's low-key interrogation, the information that you get from these interviews needs to be, how did that I know this is maybe more of a question for your creative director, but I'm curious what thoughts you guys had about making a system like that in a game when you're already bogged down with so much Bugsnax logic to also have this interview system logic.
Well, as we were playtesting, we would continuously get feedback that it was unclear who the player was, or what their motivation was and things like that. So we slowly layered in, the sort of opening scene with your editor, and then the interviewing mechanic, and so I guess we just wanted that sort of narrative frame for who the player is. And I think Kevin could talk a bit more about the iteration on the interview mechanic, because that was for a long time kind of tedious and not super it's okay, this is what we're trying to use to solve this problem of not knowing who it's the main reminder throughout the game that you are a journalist and why you're there. But for a long time, it was it took a while to get it right.
Yeah. Kevin, do you have anything to throw in?
Well, I'll just say, the interview system, I would say, came in late. And so a lot of things about our game were a bit scopy during development, but I would say doing a 3D object journal and printing the UI on that, all while not having a UI editor. I had to code all the UI in this game. Yeah.
And not having a UI artist for years.
Yeah, I was about to say, not having a few sort of key people that were, you know, kind of the driving force behind the interview system. Like, we had Bryce come in about midway through the project, and then late in the project, along with other people on the team, just sort of finally hammered out, like, okay, we need to make this sequence actually look good. It needs to be presented well, because otherwise, like, the whole driving force of the story is that you're the journalist. So, like, if the interviews just sort of act like the dialogue system, then, you know, what's the point? But then, of course, we brought in Justine as a UI artist to help us dress up all of the UI in addition to that, to actually make all this UI shine. And then, of course, Seth's music and audio helped make the sort of sequence kind of, you know, defining moments for the player, and sort of giving them a chance to, you know, narratively pick out, like, what is it that is driving these characters. And I don't know, it really helps create good moments and sort of sets the mood going forward for each of these characters.
I simply cannot rest until I find
I agree with that. Like I said, I appreciate being in a game where being a journalist is just not an incentive for the main character to punch you. Anyway, I also love Mass Effect 2, to be clear. It's one of my favorite games, so I'm not that hung up about it. It's just you guys, well, the second you guys put out a trailer that showed you're a journalist, every game journalist I knew collectively went, oh no, like, not out of like fear, but just more out of like, oh no, it's us, like we're the hero. Like, it's a specific thing. For folks in chat, we only have a few more minutes to get questions in. We would love to hear your questions if you have them, but if you also just want to hang out and admire the Bugsnax, we're just happy to have you here. I am going to go ahead and ask one of my final questions, which is, I know, like, this will be kind of more of a creative director question, but I am curious as to what your guys' thoughts are. Bugsnax has a really interesting tone where it's cute and also horrifying. Like there's like low-key, it's low-key like this, like the people transforming is kind of body horror-y, but it's also adorable. It's, the plot is on the one hand, like, it's cute and it's about an island with all these Grumpuses and all these kid names. On the other hand, like, I kind of get the vibe that, like, there's something kind of serious going on. Like, and I haven't seen the late game yet, so there's even other things that I have heard about but not seen for myself yet. But I'm just kind of like, this is such a specific intersection. Like, this is sort of like, it's not cutesy like a PBS show. It's not horror like David Lynch. And yet, so many people I know, when they saw this game, were just like low-key, like, what am I looking at? Like the specific intersection of these two things that is perfectly natural and also, like, completely wrong. Like how did you sort of feel as creative people, like, working on a game that had this kind of tone, that is both of those things, like cute and maybe a little horrifying?
Well, I mean, I think it really just comes from, like we are a very, like, collaborative team. Like, we probably do a little bit too much of, like, everyone being in everyone else's business. You know? Like, before the pandemic, we were all in one room all the time. And we all have, like, there's a pretty interesting, like, range of tastes and influences on the team. You know, like, I think we all agreed that, and, like, sort of the intersection of what everyone likes is sort of in the sort of, like, adventure time zone, where there's, like, serious real stuff, and it's also silly and it's also cute. So, like, that, it's, you know, it's good that we're able to actually get all that in there, you know. And we have influences that range all the way from like, you know, cute Muppets and stuff like that, to like, you know, a thing that I always was in the back of my head was like Apocalypse Now, you know, like someone looking for this missing person and like slowly descending into this dark, scary place, you know, and that got tempered. That of course gets tempered a lot, but like or like you mentioned David Lynch, right? Like while we were making this, like one of my favorite shows was like the newest season of Twin Peaks. So it's like things like that, like a little bit of the flavor sneaks in. Just it's kind of like a weird process that isn't always conscious, but you know.
I need you to turn it up, darling.
Yeah, would you like to throw anything in with that?
They're too fast for Grandma or I to catch, but maybe you can find a way to slow them down.
I don't know. Certainly there were times where this game was brighter, and there were definitely times where this game was darker in terms of tone. And I think we were trying to find that kind of balance where it could still be for ages that could sort of confidently play our game to the end. Because I know a lot of us go back and we'll sometimes rewatch, you know, the family films that were actually quite dark, and there's still even some now. It's not just what we grew up with. So being able to take those sort of messages and like put them through narratively through the characters, because not everything's going well for them, and you're trying to help them through their troubles. But a lot of children's media doesn't shy away from that. It's able to present it in a way that I think kids understand, and you know, I think older people sometimes look at kids and are like, oh, they're going to be horrified by this, but I don't know. I think kids probably see a lot more horrifying things that I don't think most of what happens in this game phases them. Like if you turn a character into a giant apple or whatever, it's not going to phase them as much as an adult who's like, that looks weird.
Maybe it's just like, I feel like maybe it's like as adults, like there's just more, I am scared of more things as an adult. Well, I don't know. Like when I was a kid, I was scared of tornadoes, but I thought tornadoes were like these grumpy-looking monsters that lived in the basement, not the actual windstorms that plagued us when I lived in Minnesota for a year. As an adult, I have a mild case of tryptophobia, where if you show me a thing with too many holes, I'm bothered. As a kid, I would have been like, whatever, like tryptophobia. But like, I saw one tree when I was like 14 or something, and now that tree is with me for life. And possibly, that is definitely TMI, but, Kevin and John, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for bringing us the wonderful world of Bugsnax. We're going to wrap things up here. Blader Coyote, I'll address you in a second. For those of you who are new to the GDC Twitch channel, this is a place where we interview developers, talk about the games they're making, give you a chance to answer questions about them. And GDC in general is all about the art and business of making games. It's not just programming, it's design. It's not just design, it's the UI art. It's not just the UI art, it's how do you sell and market games. And sometimes we're talking about that. We try to here and on gamasutra.com. That is what we're talking about. So if you want to stick around, we'd love it if you click the follow button. If you're a game developer, talks for GDC 2021, you can submit your talks now. Head over to our website, which is down at the bottom. I'm trying to point there we go. That direction on your screen. You can go and look up information about submitting a talk. And Blader Coyote is going to ask the question that is most likely to get us all in trouble with Sony. Can you guys confirm that the protagonist is Peter Parker on vacation? Is the protagonist's name Grumpus Garker, I guess?
Huh.
Seems like no. Seems like the answer is no.
Yeah, I guess that's a no.
No comment.
Yeah,
No
there you go.
comment. Okay, we're gonna take that. With that, we're gonna end a little early over here. And thank you all so much for doing this. I hope you all are doing well. It is a pandemic plague year of many scary things, and I hope everyone just stays inside, wears a mask, and continues to keep each other alive. This is the first stream we've had where we didn't have time to talk about making games remotely in 2020, and I would have loved to, pick your guys' brains about it, but we spent too much time admiring the adorable Bugsnax, which is I don't think you can actually spend too much time doing. With that, have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.